Hey folks, it's time for the quote of the day. And today's quote is going to come to you from a man that unfortunately is no longer really a household name. I think that's kind of a shame considering a lot of the things that he talked about are things that a lot of people today would agree with if they only knew them. Unfortunately, like I said, he's kind of fallen out of the popular eye. And, he's a little older, so I guess I can understand that. We're going to call him by what you could call his government name at first, so that people understand exactly who he was. He was 174517. That's what his name was for about a year and a half of his life. And I know that that doesn't mean anything to anybody, but he often spoke about how that's what he was known as. And he would never forget it because he had it tattooed on his left arm. And it was tattooed right here. In case you're not figuring it out, this was a man who was in a concentration camp. His name was Primo Levi, and he wrote two books that, honestly, between those two books, he's widely considered to be one of the greatest writers in modern history, just in the fact that he's been able to bring light to what he went through in Auschwitz. One of the first book is called Surviving in Auschwitz or Survival in Auschwitz. I can't remember which one it was, but that was the first book. It had another name that it went by in other countries based on one of the poems that he wrote in it. It was called like If I Was a Man or something to that effect. And I can't. It's off the top of my head, so I can't quite remember right now. But this was a massive hit and a massive book for him because he describes the experience of being in a concentration camp. Now, his second book was called The Periodic Table, and we'll get to that one in a minute because that one's a little bit more important in my opinion. But I think that it's important to understand a few things about him before we get into the quotes and things like that. This was a man that was born in Italy. He was an Italian Jewish man, and he was born in 1919. And so he basically, if you kind of do the math and figure it out, he's basically coming into young adulthood at a point in time when Mussolini, who just had a birthday just a day or two ago, uh, he he's coming into young adulthood at a time when this man Mussolini is not only a dictator, but is changing his dictatorial fashion, if you will, and turning from just your average run of the mill dictator to uh, kind of being influenced by what's happening in Germany and things like that, and turning it into a racial, uh, a racially profiling dictatorship, and starts to kind of go after Jewish people and things like that in Italy. Now, this is important to understand. I want people to be really clear on this. The concentration camps, the work camps that they had in Italy were like prison camps, but they weren't death camps. Okay, that's important to understand. So when he gets picked up in Italy and taken to a prison camp, he doesn't deserve it. There's no reason for him to be there other than the fact that he's Jewish, and he goes in, but it's not the worst thing in the world, right? Like he can survive it. He's doing okay. He's getting by. They're not mistreating him, but they are keeping him in prison, for no reason. And that obviously is horrifying, but it's not what it is, what it turns into when he gets sent to Auschwitz, which is a death camp. And he writes about this in Surviving Auschwitz, where he talks about how the famed selection process that we've all seen in movies and things like that, like in Schindler's List and all that, where they get them off the bus and they kind of stand there and there's like a panel of Germans that are like, "You will not do it here," and they will send them. Yeah, I can't. I'm just doing a fucking joking voice there, but like they do the weird German voice and then they send them to the different corners and then some of them die and so, he's like, that's not how it happened at all. That's all just Hollywood telling you that's how it happened. What really happened was if you got off the train or the bus or whatever it was that you were on and you went and you took a step to the left, then you were going to the group of people that were going to die, and if you stepped to the right, then you were going to the group of people that were going to live. And so he details how there's just this one girl that was very excited and excitable and was just excited, like didn't know what was going on. It was like an adventure for her. She had no idea what was going on, and she just happened to walk into the wrong group of people, and she was 3, and she was dead later that night. because of what they were doing in Auschwitz, obviously. So I think that it's important to like understand where this is coming from, what he went through. Like I said, Primo Levi, not the actual number, but people often get upset when you say the number. They're like, well, you shouldn't call him that. That was his, this is a horrible. And but he would defend it. He would say, no, this is I can't forget it. I'm not allowed to forget it. So as far as I'm concerned, this is my name too. Like my name is Primo Levi, but this is my name too, and I'm not going to let anybody forget it. I think that's a powerful fucking statement. I think that that's really really important to understand. But I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about Primo Levi. The reason why he came into my field of view at all was because of how he died, which is many people say he took his own life because of depression. And because of where I come from in my life's journey, that was something that mattered to me, and I tend to listen to those voices. That being said, he had a little point where he became immensely popular just a few years ago, just really quickly. For a couple of days people were using his quotes, and that is because he once said, everybody is somebody's Jew. That was a very famous quote that he had, and what he means by that is this is someone who has been outspoken since, I don't even know, like the 60s. I don't know. He's been very outspoken. I know he talked about it in the 70s, but he's been outspoken against the way that Israel was treating Palestinians. This is something that he has been on his mind because it never sat right with him that as a Jewish man that there was this essential, like this religious ethno state that was now treating an entire group of people the way that he was treated as a Jewish man in Italy and then shipped off to Auschwitz. He saw what this kind of hatred did firsthand, right? Like he was there. And we're losing those voices in history. We're losing the people that were there, the people like him that stood up and said, hey, wait a minute, this is a genocide. What's happening here? I've seen this before. I've seen what this country is doing. I've seen what is happening here before. And where people are kind of looking past that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to quote him today, even though he's not necessarily a well known guy. I just think that it's important to remember that people that literally have been to concentration camps are the ones that are speaking up saying, hey, by the way, this is not good. What the way that Israel is treating Palestinians, which obviously we know now that we're on the end of that, essentially, because they've literally wiped out an entire fucking populace. People have been speaking up against that and saying that there are similarities here. There is something to understand here. This is not good. You don't want to be on this side of history because I was on the receiving end of this hatred. I know what this hatred does. I've seen what it looks like. I've watched people die in front of me. This is what happens when you have this kind of hatred, when you do things like this. And I just think this is such an important and powerful thing when you have actual survivors of hatred like that telling you this is the course that we're on, this is the path that we're seeing. And if he were alive today, I'm sure that he would be sounding the alarm bells in America as well. But let me get to a quote for the quote of the day before I have to wrap this up. I think that I just wanted to talk about him and talk about his experience and talk about his books as much as I could. But for the quote of the day, let's go with this one. Primo Levi once wrote, monsters exist, but they are too few in numbers to be truly dangerous. More dangerous are the functionaries, ready to believe and act without asking questions. Let me read that again. This is important. Monsters exist, but they are too few in numbers to be truly dangerous. More dangerous are the functionaries, ready to believe and act without asking questions. Folks, this is a a concentration camp survivor, someone who literally watched hundreds, if not thousands, of people die in front of him over his year plus in Auschwitz. And he's telling you monsters exist. Believe him. But they aren't the scary ones. The Trumps of the world aren't the scary ones. It's the people that enact those things. It's the law enforcement. It's the red hat wearers. It's the MAGA crowd that enforce those things that you need to be terrified of. Happy birthday to Primo Levi. And to the rest of you, please take care of yourself, take care of others. I'll talk to you soon.